This is Darren Marchant with American Nomad News, and I have a guest today, Dave, who I met at the Chandler Senior Center, a really remarkable person with a lot of knowledge, and we're going to have a little impromptu interview today.
Well,
so you were telling me about bandwidth on radio.
Yeah, it's interesting, and also the power that's allowed to run on AM radio in the United States. It's limited to 50,000 watts, and that's where Wolfman Jack and some went across the border to Mexico. In Mexico, he was in Villa Cuna, Mexico, right across from Del Rio, Texas, and they were running 150,000 watts on that station he was on. I think it was maybe 1070 or something like that. I'm trying to remember the frequency, but he covered the whole East Coast. And then he got a call one day from a station in Tijuana, Mexico. And the lower you go in frequency on AM, the better it carries with the same power. So he got a job in Tijuana, Mexico at a station 620 on the AM, or 690, I think, one of those frequencies. And they were running 250,000 watts. So with that power at night, he's blanketed the whole West Coast. But that's how he got famous, because he was so well known at night, and he was broadcasting with more power in a country that borders on us. But there are many more powerful stations over in countries in Europe. To give you an example, we had 873 kilohertz in Frankfurt, Germany, and they have odd spacing. It doesn't go like it does, like we have 870, 880. They'll go 873 and then 9 kilohertz spacing. But anyway, we had 150,000 watts. We could be heard in Africa at night and things like that. But the real powerhouse stations are, there's one in Lopec, Netherlands. That station runs 500,000 watts at 700. So you can imagine how that covers at night. They have more power, and they have different spacing, 9 kilohertz on AM. And on FM, they have different spacings, like our stations can be 102, 104, 106. In other countries, that might be odd numbers, like 101, 103, 105. So if you have an old analog tuner, you can pick up those. But if you're on a digital, and we'd bring one of ours over there, it wouldn't pick it up. Just a little bit of trivia.
Can you still get those analog tuners?
They're not as available as they used to be. That was the way you tuned. Even on your car radios, it was analog.
I remember taking stuff apart, and they had these components that were a bunch of little aluminum plates that would slide next to each other like a bunch of leaves interwoven, and as you rotated them, they had a more of a relationship or less of a relationship with each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I remember some of those. I mean, I've seen so much changes in my 78 years. To think of the old TVs, like they had 525 scanning lines, and now the TVs, you can get a big wide 65, 70-inch screen.
And they're not even based on the same technology at all.
No, and they had those converter things that they offered for a while for the old TVs, and it would allow you to pick up the other signal of the new ones. It's more of a digital signal, and they're much clearer. I mean, when you think of 525 scanning lines to a TV, and now they're in the thousands, like 1,050 or higher. And some of these new ones are like 2,000 or better. I mean, it's just so clear. And you hang them on the wall, and it's just a huge, beautiful color. The color's improved. I mean, things have changed so much. I've seen so many. I remember the old tape recorders that were reel-to-reel, and you'd record things on radio and for your own benefit. And then they went to cassettes, and then they went to CDs, and it's just all digital now.
Yeah.
And you can put a lot of recording into a smaller space that it occupies.
But the quality of recording is different, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's clearer, and there's so many things that have been improved. I remember when cars only had AM radios in them, and then about I guess it was 65, I got a car and it had an AM only radio, and some of the higher cars, higher price, like Cadillacs and everything, they'd have the FM also. But they didn't get them really going until late 60s with AM, FM radios in cars. But they had a converter thing, and I got one of those that was made by Granco, Granco, and you put it under your dash, and you tune your AM radio to 1400, hoping there wasn't a station on that frequency, and then you could set your antenna at 31 inches, and you'd get FM on it. And I had one of those. And there was something called a little amplifier that would have a 30 millisecond delay between the front and the rear. And that would give you like a concert hall effect,
A little bit of an echo.
Yeah. So I've seen a lot of stuff. I mean, so many changes from 8-track tapes to you name it.
What was the first time you worked as a broadcaster?
Oh gosh, I was in, it was in the early 60s when I got into broadcasting. I had done just a little bit of stuff with other radio, but it was just voluntary. In the Army, I learned broadcasting, and then I was in it in 1962, and that's when I really got into it. I was only in my early 20s, but I enjoy it. I like to make people happy. My mother raised me that way. If you make people happy, you'll be happy yourself. So it's just in attitude.
Now, when you were working with the military as a broadcaster, what was your first gig at? Where was that?
Well, it was funny because when I went in, you always get interviewed by a recruiter. January '62, recruiter interviewed me and he said, "What would you like to get into in the military?" And I said, "Radio." Well, I found out after I finished basic training at Fort Jackson, Columbia, South Carolina, they sent me to Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, and I wondered, why did they send me here? Well, the thing was, they thought it was radio repair, and I didn't learn electronic repair, and that helped me later in my career. But then I got sent to, I was sent to Sandia Base, which is now Kirtland Air Force Base, and there were secret things. I couldn't take any notes out of class, but I got an MOS called Nuclear Weapons Maintenance Specialist. And then they sent me to Niagara Falls, New York, and I was at a Nike Herc site. And the good thing was they didn't have a regular base there, so we had to stay on an Air Force base. But we got over because in those days they did not cross-check the services to see if you were drawing separate rations. So the W-2 warrant, he didn't bother us about that. He said, "Well, you guys, you just sign for your meals," and that's the way it was. But I got to talking to the warrant officer, and I said, Officer Jones, he was a warrant officer, W-2. I wanted to get into broadcasting radio, and he was real nice. He started calling around where there was openings, and he found an opening for me at Walson Army Hospital, Fort Dix, New Jersey. They used to have live American Forces Radio and Television Service programs in the Army hospitals, and that's how I got into it. But I was almost through my 3 years then, and then I got into civilian radio. I went and studied and got a
What was your first
civilian
location that you were sitting on the radio talking to people?
Well, that was I was in the military with it, but it was kind of, hey buddy. My first location on civilian broadcasting was after I got my first class FCC license, Federal Communications Commission license. I was able to work at stations. I was in North Carolina. I was in Florida. Once you had that, it gave you an in because you are also an engineer. You can adjust transmitters and things like that. And that's how Art LeBeau got started. You know, Art LeBeau, I respect him a lot. I haven't met him yet. I'm hoping I can one of these days. He's 92 years old. He started radio in the 40s, and he got an engineering license. And then he got to be a broadcaster. And the man lives in California. He's just very well respected. He's very wealthy too, because Art LeBeau has been around so long. Everybody knows Art LeBeau. Here you can hear him in Phoenix area on 104.3 on Sunday nights from 7 to 10. But any man that's been in it that long, you know, I respect him a lot.
In the 60s, when you were still in the military, were you working as a broadcast?
Yeah, I was in that Army hospital, and we had live radio programs in the Army hospitals all through the hospital.
Where was that hospital?
Walton Army Hospital, Fort Dix, New Jersey.
Ah.
So
were you ever broadcasting overseas?
Yeah, I was in Germany. I had 2 tours over there, and I was with American Forces Network, and they even let me do oldies shows and everything. And that's where my specialty is. I like the older stuff because I'm older myself. I'm 78, so. But like I said, I like to make people happy, and I've always been that way. I feel good myself. That's the way my late mother taught me. But
did you ever get out to Southeast Asia?
Let's see.
Because I know there was a lot going on in the 60s out there.
For a while, I was stationed in Seoul, Korea. I was a broadcaster there, and then they sent me down to Saigon, Vietnam, when the communists were coming into Vietnam, and I was in charge of 3 guys. We had to evacuate all the broadcast equipment out and send it to Seoul, Korea. But I met the guy Robin Williams played in the movie, Air Force Sergeant Adrian Cronauer, and he'd come on and say, "Good morning, Vietnam," you know. But
what was he like?
He was nice. I mean, he got jacked up because he didn't listen to a sergeant major that was in charge of the broadcasting there, and sergeant major is E9. That's like God, you know, to the enlisted people. So he got relieved of duty, but. I mean, he was a fun guy. I liked him too. He just liked to make people happy, like I do. But I enjoy talking to you, Darren, about these things. Like I said, I like to make people happy. I like to make you happy. You know, that's just the way I grew up.
I've been chatting with you for, I don't know, probably 6 months or so.
Uh-huh.
And one of the things that I've thought about a lot is that our society divides people by age groups and doesn't let them talk to each other, discourages it. And I think it's so important that the senior generation in any given decade, it's best if the seniors spend time with all the other age groups, and all the other age groups spend time with all the other age groups. That, you know, that the little toddlers meet the seniors and the older adults and the middle-aged and the younger adults and the older children and the younger children and the toddlers. And I think that one of the things about that's important to me is that kids grow up with a sense that they're gonna, if they live long enough, they're going to experience all those ages for themselves, personally.
Right.
And that they get some sense of it. I'm going to put a little outro on my video here because I'm running up on time. This is Darren Marchant with American Nomad News, and I'm very proud and happy to have been able to record a conversation with my good friend Dave.
Bye. Nice talking with Darren and you guys.